March reading wrap-up, telling you about the middle grade books that I read. So, as usual, when I have a giant list of books that I'm going to read, there was a mixed reading experience. I had maybe as much as a dozen DNFs, but there were some real gems in there and then some books that I definitely solidly enjoyed. So I'm looking forward to telling you about them. The first book that I read, and it was a buddy read with my friend Jessica, who is on Instagram as Jaja Admirer of Words and Coffee, and it was The Gilded Girl by Alyssa Colman. My friend Faith over at Faith and Books told us about this book, and it is a kind of magical retelling of A Little Princess set in New York City. And I am one that I don't really enjoy Frances Hodgson Burnett's writing. And what's that I hear? That's the sound of subscribers out there who love Frances Hodgson Burnett weeping as they hear me say that. And I wish that I did, because in principle, I should, with A Little Princess and The Secret Garden, but just it's the execution that is a miss for me. But that being said, I still like the notion of A Little Princess because it is very much a Cinderella kind of story. And this was just done so beautifully. And this ended up working really well. The magic was used as kind of to showcase economic disparity. And so those who were wealthy had access to magic and those who were poor did not. And just the entire magic system I thought was written in a way that you weren't overwhelmed by all the details, but it brought life to the world. And there were some just really lovely scenes in this, and also great lessons to be taught, but taught in a way that felt very organic. I really liked this. And I know there is a sequel coming out that is going to be inspired by The Secret Garden, but you're following the same characters. So I'm really excited to read it. Although out of the library systems I'm a part of, only one of them had The Gilded Girl, and I don't know if they plan on purchasing the sequel. So we shall see. And then the next one that I read that was a delightful surprise was The BFG by Roald Dahl. Another author that I'm not really all that keen on. I've tried James and the Giant Peach, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, Matilda, and I just really don't like kind of how ghoulish he makes adults and just people in general. And the people who are attractive have great character, and the people who are ugly have bad character. It's just very didactic, I guess. So I didn't know if I was going to enjoy this, but just checked out the audiobook on a whim, and I loved the BFG. And I just found it so delightful and endearing. And human beings, I had heard that phrase. I did not know it was from the BFG. And I just loved how twisty-turny the plot was, and a lot of things I didn't see coming. And I really, really liked this. So happy to say that there is a Roald Dahl out there that I very much enjoyed. And then the next one was Pony. And this was the group read, and I would not have picked this up on my own. I am just someone who doesn't necessarily if it's solely about an animal, I'm like, yeah, it's probably not for me. I love All Creatures Great and Small, but that's like English countryside and kind of human interest. This book was stunning. The writing was pristine. And I have to say, if you have not read it and you like listening to music while you read, please, please, I implore you to listen to the True Grit soundtrack, the newer one, while reading this book. It was so fitting, and I just could picture this book like a movie in my head, with having someone with a voice like Harry Connick Jr. narrating, because there are times when he is reflecting back on the events that take place. And he has an imaginary best friend who is called Mittenwool, and or it's a ghost rather, and it just was done so well. You kind of think like paranormal, historical fiction, I don't know, and it was so beautiful and so moving, and I cried many, many times while reading this. It's just an all-time new favorite middle grade book. Stunning, knocked it out of the park. I loved it. And then following that, another amazing book, and this was a reread, and that was The Wednesday Wars. I love this book, and I love all of the humor and heart, and how they're so intertwined, and all of the Shakespeare love that is in here. And it's such a splendid book. And you follow Holling Hood over the course of a school year, and I love getting to sense the passage of time as this is going, and really hard things are happening. You know, the U.S. Is at war with Vietnam, and there's a lot of political tension because there were so many differing opinions on that, and just not a great time to be around. And it's such a good book. So if you're at all considering reading The Wednesday Wars, I highly recommend it. And it's just laugh out loud funny in parts. Like my son Peter, he was listening to some of it while I was listening, and he was just cracking up. He thought it was so funny. And then I am happy to say I have read some Ramona books now, and I have actually enjoyed them. So I do still think Ramona just needs a darn good spanking. And she would be a lot easier to deal with. That being said, I really, really do love these books. It's just like I don't like that the kind of order in her household is so topsy-turvy that she also gets to ruin, you know, the daily lives of other kids in the neighborhood, like Henry Huggins, because she's so naughty. And that is a very frustrating aspect to me, because there is, yes, kids are naughty, but she's just the next level. Like it's just not something up with which I will put. But despite all that, I really love Beverly Cleary's writing, and I have thoroughly enjoyed these books. I'm in the middle of Ramona and her father, and I'm really enjoying it. So happy to say that I am enjoying the Ramona books. So I read Beezus and Ramona, Ramona the Pest, and Ramona the Brave. Yes, just all the love for Beverly Cleary, and such fun books. And I just like getting to spend time in the little lives of the Quimby family. And then the next one that I read was a graphic novel, and that is the graphic novel of Anne of Green Gables. This is so beautiful. I didn't know how I was going to feel reading a really condensed version of Anne of Green Gables, but the art is so integral to this, and it's done. You can tell the person who did the art for this loves Anne of Green Gables so much, and I just found it such a beautiful, lovely, calming book to read. And the next one that I read was The Beatrice Prophecy by Kate DiCamillo. This was another real highlight of the month. I cried a lot as I was reading this, and I said in my Goodreads review that the truth, beauty, and goodness in this book abound. It is about people making hard decisions, doing hard things, even when they don't know if it's going to turn out all right, and pushing back the darkness. And that to me is such a contrast to books like Jude the Obscure, which I haven't even done a full video on because I'm still so annoyed about it, where being a victim is glorified, and just wallowing in your sorrows is glorified. And books like The Beatrice Prophecy, those are the people I want to be like. Those are the people I want to strive to be like. It's so beautiful, and just eloquent, and very different than Kate DiCamillo's other fiction. And so I wasn't sure what to expect, but it was Kate DiCamillo, so I should have known it was going to be breathtaking. And then the next one was The Trumpet of the Swan. I have somehow gone through my entire life neglecting to actually read E.B. White. And I really enjoyed this. It's about a swan who has, I think they say, a speech defect, which sounds kind of weird for a swan. But he can't honk like the other swans, which is very sad. And so eventually he's given this trumpet, and he can play the trumpet. Also something I wasn't expecting. The animals talk just like people in this. It's like they are just other people. And so that kind of took me a little bit of adjusting, but once I realized what was happening, I was like, oh, okay, this is how this little world is. But yes, I really loved it, and it was fun too, being a former Philadelphia resident. He spent some time in the Philadelphia Zoo, and the different things that he was talking about, landmarks, I recognized them, and so I felt like I really had a sense of place for that, so that was cool. And yeah, I really enjoyed The Trumpet of the Swan. And then I read the second from the Worst Witch series, The Worst Witch Strikes Again by Jill Murphy. She's the author of this series. I love these books. I've since read another one, and then I'm in the middle of the fourth one. And they are just lovely, lovely, charming magic school books. And you can finish one in a little over an hour. And I love them. So it's fun to follow these sweet girls and their adventures at wizarding school, or at witch school. Next was The Railway Children, which was my February pick, which was my March pick for the Kindred Spirits book club. And this is one that I really enjoyed, but I think I enjoy the Bastable series more. So it's the Treasure Seekers, the Would-Be Goods, and the New Treasure Seekers. The Railway Children, I really, really liked them, and it was beautiful writing, and I loved getting to see the daily lives of this family. But that being said, I did find they always were good. And I find it gets a little, I don't know, a little boring when you keep reading about kids that are always good. I don't know. That's why I think just the Bastable family, I really enjoyed how they were constantly getting into scrapes. I find it highly amusing, not in real life when there are kids like that, but in a book, I don't know. I like that. So I liked it. I didn't love it though. And it makes me want to reread the Bastable Children books. And those are also by E. Nesbit, and just her writing is stunning. And she is really good at dialogue with children, just making them sound like real children. And then the Vanderbeekers Lost and Found, which is the fourth book in the Vanderbeekers series. And this series just continues to be so excellent, and I highly recommend it. I love the Vanderbeeker family so much. And this one had some really serious, heavy things in it, and it deals with grief. And I was crying buckets in the parts that specifically dealt with grief. And I think that if you want to put a book into the hands of a child to help them deal with grief, this would be a great one to do. And it's just dealt with so well. And yeah, such a good book. So I'm really looking forward to continuing on in that series. I think the sixth one is about to come out or has come out. So it's an ongoing series, which is always exciting when it's one that you love. And that is all that I have to talk about with you today. And I hope that you enjoyed hearing about the middle grade books that I read. I definitely did have some leftovers at the end of the month. So still trying to get to some middle grade in April. And I did find this middle grade went really well with me not burning out on middle grade. And I think that's because I read other things. I did a fair number of mysteries and just some other odds and ends, and it just ended up being really fun. So I look forward to speaking with you in another video soon, and I will be back, and have a lovely day. Bye.